Imagine in the future, you say something the government doesn't like. Yeah, they'll shut off their money, but they'll also shut off your car. They'll shut off your ability to sell or use your retirement assets or your ability to sell your home. I mean, this is truly the last step in all of this, and it's not been discussed. And the bill's about to pass. You have what? Stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, whatever
Even your
else.
car you might own, right?
Even your car. The Clarity Act is about creating a system for having digital tokens, just like a stable coin is a digital token that represents the dollar. They want to create digital tokens that represent everything that we own. So they're going to be able to program, track, and censor not just how we pay, but what we own. And that's why I've been trying to explain that the Clarity Act is the biggest surveillance bill in the history of the United States, but it's been mostly marketed as, oh, well, this is going to give America the lead in innovation and everything else. What you have to know about this bill is with this bill, all of your digital token transactions, the things that represent all of your assets, will be tracked in real time. The transaction history will be recorded, not just any individual transaction, but the chain of transactions, what you're buying and selling. That information will be retained for 5 years. It will be shared with multiple departments within the United States federal government and also with foreign central banks. So when I say it's the largest surveillance bill, that's what I'm talking about. And people are like, well, this is going to be great for crypto because it's going to provide clarity. The clarity is they're implementing a digital prison. The clarity is that this is how we will own nothing. But you put the right bill and you throw enough propaganda behind it. There's been $200 million spent by the crypto and banking lobbies. Everything about it, I've actually put up a thing on day2026.com where I analyze the bills. I show you which former regulators are working on it, who all of the trade associations are. There's no one sitting at the table negotiating these bills that is concerned about our economic freedom or our financial privacy. So it's not part of the bill because there's no one there actually even advocating for it. So when you take these things together and then you throw on AI surveillance, Palantir, what Doge accomplished, which was not $2 trillion worth of savings, but connecting Palantir with multiple federal government databases, we now have all of the elements of technocracy. And this has all happened without any protest or any resistance.
What's wild is that, just honing in on the Clarity Act, I've been kind of covering some of these things happening at more the global level, looking at what the IMF is doing, some of the BIS, et cetera. But just, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, the IMF just published this paper, right, where they're okay, what is real world asset tokenization? The IMF just called it a structural reconfiguration. So the IMF just published this note on April 2nd, calling tokenization a fundamental reconfiguration of financial architecture, where they're looking at real world asset tokenization. And like, this is like, when I saw these things happening even a year, 2 years ago at the global level, I was thinking, okay, the unified ledger and some of these things, I was like, this is frightening. This is dystopian. But now, as you mentioned, right here, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025. All right, this is it, right? This is the exact.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This is crazy, because if you look at it and you think about, okay, I can maybe figure out ways of resisting CBDC, right? It's like, okay, one, keeping most of your assets outside of like the main banking system, because what happens that one day you get the notification from JP Morgan and say, hey, due to some sort of massive cyber attack or AI, which Altman's out there warning about, they say, we've now converted your funds into digital tokens and you'll still be able to spend them and everything, but now it's this tokenization of that. Like, that's one thing. But thinking about the tokenization of your house you own, of the whatever assets that you have, like, that's kind of, you look at what's happening in China, and you look at some of the things that kind of tie into CBDC and the controlling of using, okay, hey, you can't access your money to buy this thing because of XYZ. Well, this goes so far beyond money. This is basically taking everything around us and tokenizing it, which means they can track it, they can take it away, they can make you have permission to have it. It's almost like, in a lot of ways, it's look at what video ownership used to be 20 years ago. Growing up, for me, it was you'd have this big library of your VHS tapes, And there's something kind of cool about that, right? Hey, we got the new movie. It came out, the new Braveheart movie. You got your double VHS for it. Now that's all being done digitally. And not only are you paying for subscription to everything, it's like, oh, I wanted to watch that, but now it's no longer included in my Apple Plus subscription or whatever. So that's just kind of a tiny little micro example of what happens when they take the physical and they digitize it, and then they make you basically play by their rules if you want access to that asset.
Yeah, it is how you own nothing. And I've been working on this tokenization area since 2018. And I actually started out, I didn't mention this part of it, but I stopped using a personal bank account in 2019. I live on privacy, cryptocurrency, gold, and silver. But I've been interested in the tokenization of assets. And I first got involved in it with the idea that, hey, just as central banks and governments are these unnecessary third parties for money, right, that create all of these wars and everything, these other markets, our stocks, everything else that we own, there's an opportunity for us to be able to trade those things and own them in our own self-custody and trade them outside of the system. So that's how I started getting into this. And we're getting the dystopian view of all of that. Just as people are not pushing, or what's gaining in popularity aren't privacy coins that we have in our own possession. All of these government rules are around centrally controlled programmable money. And now we're getting this with our assets. And so this is why I say this is the most important bill, because it's the kind of final piece of how we will own nothing. Imagine in the future, you say something the government doesn't like. Yeah, they'll shut off their money, but they'll also shut off your car. They'll shut off your ability to sell or use your retirement assets, or your ability to sell your home. I mean, this is truly the last step in all of this, and it's not been discussed. And the bill's about to pass. I mean, it's very close.
Well, I mean, even though some of those things are already happening in China, where if your social credit score is not what it needs to be, you can't buy a train ticket, you can't get a mortgage, you can't have access to certain things. Even they have zones. You have to scan your face to go into some of their more kind of 15-minute city ideas they have over there. You literally see these videos of people walking through these turnstiles. You have to scan your face, and it will allow you in or out of that zone, which is like, that's just, it's there. And so I want to get back to Palantir and some of those things. But before I jump there, I want to kind of look at just the physical infrastructure for this, right? Because right now what we're seeing is there's this company called Flock, and they have these Flock cameras. And I think they have 80,000, or I forget the number they have, but these basically they're cameras that you can look at maps. I live out in the middle of nowhere in the country. I found at some intersection a mile away from me, there's a Flock camera, right? These cameras, every time you drive past, they're collecting data on everything, even what dents you have in your car, what your car looks like, your license plate, what's happening, who's driving. They're collecting all this data, storing it, supposedly for our safety. Of course, everything's done for the safety. Patriot Act was to protect us from the terrorists that we funded, or we were CIA assets, right? And so, you have the camera network. Obviously, you have the Ring camera network, right? Where we saw that what Ring has 30 million cameras or something like that are existing in America. There's a Super Bowl ad that came out of hey, find your lost dog. Well, what a brilliant way to get the average American person to think, wow, Ring camera is so convenient. Now Amazon has built a 30 million camera digital surveillance infrastructure across America. But then you tie that into all the different data centers that are being built, that's a whole other issue, not to mention Project Stargate, $500 billion investment tied into Oracle. You look at all these things together, and it's like what you can see is that the physical infrastructure is being built to match the digital infrastructure that people have been warning about for quite some time.
It is. And when I was writing my book, and I wrote the book in 2023, so this has all gotten worse, but there are more surveillance cameras per capita in the US than China. I mean, they obviously have more people in China, but they have 700 million surveillance cameras in China, but we actually have more, per person here in the United States. And so this has been building. And a lot of this happened during COVID. I mean, you had things like contact tracing, you had a whole variety of other mechanisms that were put in place under the guise of, tracking and public health and safety, so on and so forth. But whenever they put these things in place, they never take them away. Whenever there's an emergency, they usually don't lift whatever the surveillance is that was put in place during that emergency. And so now we have a combination of all of these things. in place. And then you have Trump saying, hey, well, let's, have Palantir, let's build a database of Americans. Let's have Palantir Connect. Palantir is at the heart of more than people think. I mean, people have heard different aspects of this, and maybe you've seen their CEO, Alex Karp, make, various statements that are about, Ukraine or what's going on in the Middle East, but they're heavily involved in predictive policing at the local level. Palantir has won a contract where they're building an entire database in the UK for the National Health Service. So they are building the database of all of the people in the UK and all of their health information.
Here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That means a $100,000 savings account today could feel like $50,000 by 2031. And you see it every time you fill up your tank, buy groceries, or pay the bills. Prices are up. Your dollar's down. But there's a simple way to protect the value of your savings with something real, something proven: gold, an asset that holds its value over time. And that's why I trust Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to protect your savings with physical gold or silver. No high-pressure sales, no call centers, just honest guidance, one-on-one support, and transparent pricing. And right now, when you open a qualified account, Noble Gold will send you a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar as a thank you. So head over to goldwithseth.com or call 626-654-1906 today to learn more. Again, that's goldwithseth.com or 626-654-1906. Don't just protect your wealth, preserve its power.